Good afternoon. I am Amanda Nimon-Peters, and until recently, I was the Dean of Dubai campus at Hult International Business School. Now, this was pretty confusing for a lot of people because according to their perception, the Dean of a business school is kind of supposed to look something like this. If you go to Google Images, this is what you'll find, and certainly the Dean of a business school is supposed to be a lot taller, right? But all jokes aside, I was the Dean of Dubai campus when we implemented the program that I'm going to be referring to today. And so it's very exciting for me, in fact, in my new role now in research strategy, still at Hult, to be able to share with you the results of the program that we implemented. Now, I am the leader for a research challenge called Transforming Behavior. And what that means is this. All of our faculty members globally are invited to contribute research which identifies the interventions that will result in improved business outcomes through changing the behavior of organizations and individuals. A very important and central foundation of the Transforming Behavior Challenge is this. Knowing is not the same as doing. Knowing how to do something is not at all the same as being able to do it yourself. For example, when I watch Serena Williams at Wimbledon on television, I know exactly what she's doing. I understand, and I can explain to you how she crosses the court so elegantly and returns the ball back across with great speed. And sometimes I actually come to believe that I could do that myself. But it only takes a few short minutes of being out on the court with a tennis racket for me to realize that knowing what she is doing is not at all the same as being able to do it. Now, the fact that knowing is not the same as doing is also a problem for business schools. You see, business school education is set up to provide knowledge, and business school students are assessed on their ability to demonstrate that knowledge. The problem here is that when business school candidates graduate and they go out into the workforce, they are no longer assessed on what they know, but on what they can actually do. Now, if you look into the literature on this topic, you'll actually find that there are many studies which show that academic scores representing knowledge are a very poor predictor of how people will perform in the workplace. And you know, people in industry are aware of this lack of alignment, and they are responding. In 2015 and 2016, 3 of the UK's biggest employers of university graduates, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, and Penguin Random House, all dropped the requirement for a specific level of university performance as a prerequisite for hiring managers. After years of collecting their own data on the people applying to their jobs, how they performed when they were hired, they found that how somebody performed at university was just not a sufficiently good enough predictor of how they would go on to perform on the job. Now, if you talk to business school professors and business school leaders, and there are quite a few of them in the room, they are all aware that they need to develop the leadership behavior of their MBA candidates. They know that they need MBA candidates to be strong leaders, good at team working, good at resolving conflict, good at managing stress. And I'm sure many of them believe that this is actually exactly what they're doing. They're taking graduates into the program at the beginning of the year and graduating them a year or two later as stronger leaders. However, as we said before, business school education is not focused on behavior, it is focused on knowledge. And so in actual fact, it's far more likely that this is what they're doing. Taking people into the school at the beginning of the program and graduating them a year or two later as people who know more things. Are they different from what they were at the beginning of the program? Well, of course they are. And if you ask them, many of them will say that they are better leaders than they were at the beginning of the program. But we have no systematic evidence that they are any better at leadership than they would have been if they'd spent the last year working in Starbucks or backpacking around Europe or India. You see, for a start, we don't know if they're any better in leadership development and leadership behavior because we didn't measure what their performance was like at the beginning of the program. Secondly, it's highly unlikely that they have systematically improved in their leadership behavior because typical leadership development activities in business schools don't target behavior, they target knowledge. So if you look at the typical leadership development activities that you'll find in business schools, it's as if they operate according to some kind of conceptual osmosis. If we discuss ideas and concepts around students, this will somehow soak in through their skin and change their behavior. The two most common leadership behavior activities or leadership development activities that you'll find in business schools are these. One, leadership courses, where we watch videos of leaders and we talk about leaders and how they got to be great leaders, so conceptual and theoretical. And two, we put students into teams and ask them to deliver an assignment. Now the logic here goes, if we put them into teams, they'll learn team working skills. But the unit of assessment remains the quality of the output of the assignment. We don't actually know that their team working skills are getting any better at all. And in fact, while they may well be getting used to working in teams, but it doesn't matter that it doesn't mean that they're getting any better at it. And the reason for that is this, is that behavioral change is actually hard. It's hard to do. The people do not change in their behavior significantly and quickly because we just discuss ideas and concepts. So in order to illustrate that to you, I'm going to share with you this study that was done on 97 undergraduates. And the purpose of this study, the researchers wanted these undergraduates to adopt one positive health-related behavior and have that become a habit on a daily basis. So in this study, there were a variety of different behaviors that the participants could choose. And the first was this, very simple, eat a piece of fruit with breakfast. The second was this, drink a bottle of water with lunch. And the third was this, go for a 20-minute run before dinner. Now, what I want to highlight to you about this behavioral change is that it's very straightforward. The people who were participating in the program were very positively disposed towards these behaviors. The behavior is very simple. I think you and I have the same interpretation of drinking a bottle of water with lunch, right? It's not complex, it's not open to interpretation. What's also really important is that these candidates had the opportunity to perform this behavior every single day. Because every single day, we think about having breakfast, having lunch, having dinner. And that's not necessarily the same as when it comes to, say, resolving a conflict, right? So, simple behavior, I have the chance to perform it every day. How long, on average, does it take 97 undergraduates to adopt that behavior as a regular daily habit? Well, it's a simple answer to that, and it's 66 days, over 2 months, to learn to adopt that behavior so that it just became a habit without me thinking about it. But imagine this. Imagine that now my objective is not on average across the cohort. Now my objective is every single one of those undergraduates needs to adopt that behavioral change. How long would that take? What is the range, the individual range in days that it takes for every one of the 97 to adopt that behavioral change? And this is the answer. Between 18 and 224 days. 224 days to learn to eat a piece of fruit. Turns out behavioral change is harder than we thought. Now, back in 2014-15, we launched a major leadership development curriculum. It put behavioral change at the absolute core of the program, and let me be clear about this. This is no conceptual osmosis. This is a major investment of time, resources, energy, stress, okay? And we were highly stressed about it. This program is an 8-month program. It runs in parallel to all of the core courses. And in 2014-15, it had 57 hours of workshops, 58 hours of team working and leadership simulations. Number 2 important feature, leadership was not some vague idea out there. I don't know, did they improve in leadership? I don't know, depends on your definition of leadership. Leadership was very specifically defined. We have a leadership behavioral competency model with 3 key foundations: adaptive thinking, interpersonal influence, team working skills. And on each of those 3 foundations, there are specific behavioral competencies, like resolving conflicts constructively. Third important feature of this program, it has dedicated faculty members. So we did not simply tack this onto the workload of our professors of entrepreneurship or managerial economics. We hired dedicated faculty members to teach this program. The program also has a significant amount of peer-to-peer behavioral change coaching and professional coaching. And on top, the students adopted many of the best practices from industry, like writing a personal development plan, tracking their progress, measuring and reporting on it. Now, how do we assess their progress on this particular program? Well, we did two key things. One, we took their self-assessment, and we took peer assessment of their performance of these behavioral competencies. So when I say, let me actually just cover, we did this at the start of the program, 3 months in and 8 months in, so that's at the end of the program. And when I say peer assessment, what we mean is this. The performance of the behavioral competencies was assessed for each individual by the group of people they were working with at the time. And of course, at the beginning of the program, 3 months in and 8 months in, that group of people changes, right? Now, if I take how people's behavior was rated on average by their peers and co-workers at the end of the program after 8 months, and compare that to how their behavior was rated at the beginning of the program, did they improve? Well, thank goodness, yes, they actually did, okay? So what's really important about the data that I'm going to show you here is this. This represents 635 MBA students. They came from 79 different countries. The total group was about 60% male, 40% female. And they took their MBA program full-time at one of our 5 campuses internationally. And what you can see on this chart, and particularly where you see the great big bars over there, you can see that the pattern of improvement, leadership behavior improvement, was the same, irrespective of the campus on which they did their MBA. Now, what I've done there with that blue line is I've taken out the effect of campus, and I've just put the average across the total school. And you can see a significant amount of leadership behavioral improvement. When we ran the program again in 2015-16, now everybody's got a year of experience, we could improve it, we could make it better. We actually managed to shift that line, purple line now, so that now more people showed more behavioral improvement and leadership development. Fantastic. That's really great. So what we've now been able to show is that if we put our MBA candidates through an 8-month intensive behavioral change program, they will develop in their leadership behavior, at least in the perception of their peers. But that's not really the issue. Here's the real issue. It didn't work quickly. This didn't work overnight. 3 months into the program, I'd say actually progress was pretty disappointing. And this table here, what you can see is the 3 pillars of leadership behavior that we mentioned: adaptive thinking, interpersonal influence, and team working skills. And on the table, you can see the average of how peers rated individuals at the start of the program, 3 months in and 8 months in. Now, here's at the start of the program. This is a 5-point scale. So 3 is sort of roundabout neutral, okay? And what happened at the start of the program is people rated their peers as, just like a little bit better than neutral. That's kind of what you would expect. This is the very, very start of the program before they've done anything. Well, 3 months in, those numbers have gone up, but not that much. If I wanted to say that on average across my cohort, people had significantly developed in their leadership behavior, I would want that number to go from an about neutral to at least like a 4 out of 5, right? Which is quite a bit at the time. Well, it turns out they did go to a 4 out of 5, but it took 8 months. It took 8 months for them on average to demonstrate this behavioral change. But here's an even more important point, and it's this. It didn't work for everyone. After 8 months of this program, 18% of our students globally in 2014-15 did not show any improvement in leadership behavior as assessed in the eyes of their peers. Now, we know from this study of undergraduate banana eating that we just looked at that people take different amounts of time to change their behavior, right? Now, I don't personally have the data on why these 18% of people did not change. But what I want to put to you is this. If after an 8-month intensive leadership behavioral change program, they did not change their behavior, then all we can really conclude is that it's highly unlikely that typical MBA programs with their conceptual leadership development actually improve leadership skills in the majority of their students to any significant degree, and therefore I conclude that this is indeed the model that is in operation. Can we really expect our students to improve in complex leadership skills through simple exposure to leadership concepts? It's actually far more likely that they don't. And in fact, a recent study of highly celebrated CEOs found that those with an MBA were far more likely than the others to take self-serving decisions with short-term results at the expense of the people and the environment around them. And that is exactly the paradigm that's in play when we put people into a team working situation and ask them to produce an assignment. If you're made to work in a team to produce an assignment, but the unit of assessment remains the assignment itself, then the incentive is simply to do whatever it takes to get the best short-term result. And so we have 3 major recommendations for business schools that want to improve the leadership capability of their students. The first is this: if you want to improve leadership behavior, then you need programs that directly target leadership behavioral development. The second is this: you need dedicated faculty. You cannot expect that a faculty member who has been hired for his or her expertise in accounting can also teach leadership. And frankly, you're not really taking the concept seriously if you think any old person can teach leadership skills. You wouldn't think any old person can teach accounting. Finally, you need to change the unit of assessment. The unit of assessment needs to include behavior and not just knowledge. Thank you for your time and attention.